The offseason is in full swing, and there's a lot of moving pieces between the transfer portal, coaching hires, and the new early enrollees. Eric Nalin, owner of Inside Texas, is back to catch us up to speed on all the spinning plates. Hop over to the website and stay up to date with all the breaking news. Subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. Now let's get the latest word from all the happenings inside the program. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, Eric, and let's start off with all the new arrivals. Different than last year, we have a bunch of early enrollees, and a lot of them are the top players in the class. So how are they adjusting? And of course, the obligatory, how is Arch Manning looking?
Early enrollees had 14 come in, and a little bit of a departure from last year is many of the elite players were the ones that early enrolled. Some of the highest rated guys, or maybe not the highest rated guy in Sadir Mitchell's case, but to me he's one of the elite guys. A lot of those guys that have a chance to play early are the guys that arrived on time. There's a bit of a selection bias with the players that arrive early. They're typically a little more driven. I'm not saying the guys that arrive late aren't. That's a little more hit or miss though. These guys have proven that they want to get to campus early. They want to start their development as quickly as possible. It is a lot of the most motivated players. And again, that's not to say anything about the guys coming in May or June. Some of those guys can't graduate early depending on their high school, or they just have different things going on. They're heavily involved in spring sports or whatever. There's a jolt of energy that they bring, especially in those numbers. And there's excitement. Even the guys that are currently in the program are curious about this Arch Manning kid that they've heard so much about and read so much about it. And, many of them might know him, but it's a little different to see him around the program every single day. He's come in as advertised. I wrote recently that it's not a foregone conclusion he'll redshirt. It's possible he'll redshirt still, but I think he's coming in to compete for the backup quarterback, and then if he is the backup quarterback, then it's kind of just dependent on how the season goes. Whether Ewers can stay healthy or if he can take the next step. Now I'm bullish on people. Some people misread that article, even though it was very clear that I wasn't saying he was going to compete to start. I think Ewers has definitely got that job locked down. I feel a lot more confident about him after the bowl game, especially with how I saw him reacting to what Sark was doing differently on offense. But yeah, the new enrollees are on campus and working out. The first week they were spending under the more watchful eye of the strength and conditioning staff, making sure that they're doing the lifts the proper way. There's ways to shortchange lifts, and there's ways to do them right and get the most out of them. And I think that the coaches just wanted to make sure that they were doing lifts the right way. But now they're assimilating more into with the rest of the program, and they're off and running.
Good to hear. And then we have several other moving pieces this time of year. We're in that hurry up and wait stage. So where are we at with all the potential transfers? I know wide receiver is getting a lot of attention.
Well, I think you led me into that question the right way with hurry up and wait. We are watching to see who's going to come in, what's going to materialize. Texas has passed on a lot of wide receivers. Some of them they weren't going to have a chance with, J. Michael Sturdivant. A lot of people were curious why they didn't make a run at him. They just weren't going to get him. He's definitely talented enough to play at Texas. And if they had a chance, I think they would have thrown their hat in the ring there. Other guys, Dorian Singer, kind of looked like he had USC lined up first. But they have passed on guys like Caden Prather, who would have helped him. He's a talented kid that ended up going from West Virginia to Maryland. I believe he's from that area. And so we're waiting to see what they know, or what they think they know about what could potentially materialize, even though we're nearing the end of the clock. The window is going to expire here on Wednesday. If the name is not submitted by Wednesday, that means it could still leak by Friday or so. But if the name's not submitted by Wednesday, then it's all over and done, unless there are graduate transfers, I believe, can go in at any time. So yeah, we're waiting to see what happens at wide receiver. The right guy goes in, they'll be extremely aggressive. Edge, nothing really materialized there. There weren't quite the options there was last portal year. So, it wasn't really the biggest need. A lot of people have wondered about some defensive end sorts of guys. They don't want a defensive end. They've got plenty of those. They would take a guy that's legitimately a pass rusher, a guy that's got a skill that can get to the quarterback. Obviously, they had a lot of pressures last season, but they didn't get home enough. They would have taken a pass rusher. That guy doesn't appear to be in the portal. So they'll have to go with what they have. But, they've stockpiled a ton of options at the position, and they've proven that they can develop. And so, I think they're very excited about the edges despite not adding one. Linebacker, I was soft selling that one for a while, that it wasn't going to happen. They loaded up on linebacker similar to how they loaded up on offensive line last season and then passed on taking portal guys. A very similar situation. They got McDonald late. They got Anthony Hill late. They love Leona LaFau. Samaje Burrell, even though he's not early enrollee, has a chance to get snaps as a true freshman. They like Maurice Blackwell. It looks like a hole on the roster right now, but there's a lot of guys that could potentially fill it. Jalen Catalon on safety, too good to pass up despite his injury history. I wouldn't rule out another defensive back at some point, maybe in the next window. But, they really like what he has. If he could stay healthy, they think he's the best safety that Texas has had since the heyday of the DBU years. One wide receiver I should have mentioned is Gary Bryant Jr., talented USC player, is a top 50 recruit coming out of high school. Not only was he talented coming out of high school, but he showed that talent 2 years ago. 50 catches or so, 7 touchdowns, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood. Explosive guy. He's in the portal. He doesn't graduate till March. So if Texas doesn't land a guy in the next couple days, or within by the end of the month, I expect them to shift focus to Bryant and make a play for him. Like I said, the fact that he's not graduating till March does buy them a little time that plays in their favor.
And then returning players wise, Sweat, Ford, Whittington all announced they're coming back, and it looks like Worthy is staying put as well. Are we waiting on anyone else? Any word on Jahdae Barron?
A big part of the portal is who you can retain, and you're not just the portal, but you can motivate guys to not go into the NFL draft to be a 6th or 7th round pick and have them come back, improve their draft stock, and maybe make a little NIL at the same time. Texas has done an exceptional job. Jordan Whittington's returning, Christian Jones is returning, Tavondre Sweat. These are key pieces. It's unfathomable to me. If you would have told me in November these guys would all return, I would have said you're crazy. Jahdae Barron, we believe he's going to stick around. I don't think he wants to leave. I don't think Xavier Worthy ever really wanted to leave. Would he? Maybe if the right circumstances arose. Sure, you can't rule it out. We're always going to watch the May window too, because spring ball brings in new data points. These guys got some stuff going on that I'm not going to talk publicly. That maybe that motivates a move at some point. I'm not saying those two guys specifically, but you never know. And so we will watch the May window closely. Similar to last year, where it got a little hectic there behind the scenes. Maybe it could again. I don't know. But for now, I think the roster's pretty much coming back intact, as we've been publicly saying. Barron back, Worthy back. And we'll see.
Glad those guys are coming back. And then we had Marion head out to UNLV to be the offensive coordinator. Chris Gilbert left UNT, and there's potential that Gary Patterson isn't returning as well. So what's the update on getting all of these spots filled?
Sark has done a really good job of keeping his staff together since he arrived, but we do have some minor shakeups here. You've got Brennan Marion taking the upward move to go get a chance to be OC at UNLV under Barry Odom. So obviously, they've got to replace wide receiver. Chris Gilbert left. He was the director of high school relations, did a sensational job at that. And then, as you mentioned, Gary Patterson, what he's going to do is in a bit of limbo. Texas does have a job posting for a special assistant to the head coach. That could be an offensive role, though, because I know it would probably be filled by an offensive guy. That leads me to believe that maybe Gary's not leaving, but there's a lot of signs pointing me to thinking that Gary will probably be done. But I don't know for certain. He hasn't been around Austin quite as much as normal. We don't want to put all his business out there that we know, but I would be surprised if he came back, but not totally shocked. I do think he played a big role last year. He was a popular guy behind the scenes. It's kind of tough to come in with that sort of reputation and fit in as well as he did. Hopefully he's back, but we don't know that for sure. We do expect that special assistant to be filled by somebody with more of an offensive background. That will probably play out maybe later this week or next week, but they're going to get the wide receiver coach in, or at least try to. There's a good chance it's going to be Chris Jackson, who's the wide receiver coach at Jacksonville Jaguars. They just pulled off that highly improbable comeback. Trevor Lawrence had a tale of two halves there, came back and beat the Chargers. And so, I think that's got that a little bit on hold. Chris Jackson seems to be the front runner there. And then the other one, director of high school relations, I think that's on a bit of hold too. Texas identified a guy. We think he withdrew his name. He's got a nice little setup. That job is interesting. You're going to have to hit guys probably on either side of the career arc, either really young guys or guys that are on the tail end that have already built up their relationships. I think there's a couple young guys they're looking at, and then maybe an older guy or two that they could be looking at. But they seem to be taking their time on that. Really what they want is a guy that can build relationships or already has relationships intact in the most talented areas of the state. And, right now that's the I-20 corridor. You're talking about DeSoto, Duncanville, Lancaster. I guess we could throw Sauk in there too. Cedar Hill's sort of there as well, even though they don't quite have the guys they once did. But they want somebody with those relationships that, there's already trust in place. You want a guy that gets your foot in the door with those programs. All you want is a chance to sell Texas, and anybody that helps you get your foot in the door is going to have a lot of value. So they're still looking for the right guy for that role.
We're in that limbo stage waiting for a bunch of shoes to drop. And Eric, thank you as always. And please let the fans know where to find your work.
Yeah, make sure to check us out at InsideTexas.com. We have probably the most comprehensive coverage there is on the entire internet of Texas football, recruiting, and basketball as well. We cover that quite closely. We're running a good special right now. I think it's $30 until the beginning of the season. Great opportunity to check us out. If you don't like it, easy to cancel. You don't have to call Bangladesh. You can just go press a button in your own little settings and be done with it. So it's a very cheap way to become your smartest among your group of friends on UT football and recruiting. And you can always win your money back on the bets that you can make by whether or not Texas is going to get recruits like Tassili Akana at the last second.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nalin. Head over to Inside Texas and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook on.